Welcome to the very first episode of Weekly Comic Book Movies with ZodWriter and Ashley the Widow. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good, doing good. Can't wait to talk about these movies. Excited.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be some fun stuff. This for those who don't know, this is a brand new uh, series of live streams that Ashley and myself are going to be talking about comic book movies, but with a twist from the perspective of two lifelong comic book readers. So
Yes.
this is going to be kind of a new way of doing it because we've been on a lot of live streams where we talk about these movies, but one thing I've noticed is I've never seen people really talk about these movies from the perspective of like comic book readers and discussing the characters and the lore and the differences between what we see in the movies versus what we get on the page. And the first person, when I first thought of something of wanting to do something like this, you were the first person, Ashley, that I could think of because
Oh,
of your
thanks.
passion because of your passion for Marvel and your passion for the comic books. There was just
I
like
know.
nobody else. I was like, my God, this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I want. Something that where I'm a big DC fan, but I'm also a big comic book reader and I read
Yeah.
a lot of Marvel comics growing up. So I'm not coming from the perspective of hating Marvel, just like I know you're not coming from the perspective of hating DC.
No,
So
yeah.
it makes it very, very cool for you and me to be able to talk about it and to geek out over, you know, things that we see in the movies and we notice as true comic book fans. So that's
Yes.
really what the impetus was for the idea for us to do this type of show together. And today we are going to talk about the movie Eternals. And
Yes.
I watched this movie on your recommendation, Ashley, because I waited for the movie to come on to Disney Plus. I did not see it when it was in the theater. You had said that you had watched it, and I think I remembered asking you, and you said that I would probably like it from the perspective of being like a DC movie fan kind of a thing. Like you gave some good examples and good reasons why you thought I would like it. And so I decided to watch it and break it down from the perspective of somebody who used to read the old uh, Kirby
Yes.
Eternals comic books as a child. And I don't know, there's a lot of things about this movie that I liked, but then as a comic book reader, there were a lot of things about this movie that I thought could have been done better.
Mhm.
Um, from a casting perspective, a lot of the characters I felt like could have been more comic book accurate from the way that they looked in the comics versus how they look on screen. But that's something that is
Mhm.
being changed all the time. So you really, if you start talking about actors and saying that they could have made this actor look like this, then you come off like you're nitpicking. What do you think about that part?
Um, I don't. I'm not a big fan of like gender bending and race swapping. I'm really not. Um, And in the case of this movie, we had so much of it going on. And like for
Yes.
me, the biggest part was like with Sprite, it made to me almost absolutely no sense in a way because they changed her gender, but then they made her very like sexually ambiguous almost to me. Like I hated the haircut. I didn't like it just to me with Sprite, it seemed like we're still gonna go under the premise that she looks like Peter Pan, but now she's just a girl, and it just seemed like it was just a missed opportunity, and it wasn't really needed. So for me, with that character, I really didn't understand why we had to like do that. Just besides like feeling like we're like, oh, one more female in the movie. So I really didn't like it with Sprite. Makari, it didn't bother me as much, and with Ajax, it didn't bother me. Um, but with Sprite, it just to me it just didn't work really for me. And
Yeah,
overall,
yeah.
I just Sprite just as a character almost doesn't work. But that's just me.
Yeah, I didn't like the whole idea of creating this love triangle where, you know, Sprite Sprite was in love with Icarus. And it felt to me in the comics, in the Jack Kirby comics, I always got the impression that Sprite was supposed to be his version of Peter Pan. I don't know if
Yeah.
you
I
ever
mean,
felt that
yes.
way,
Yeah.
but
Like, because Peter Pan was supposedly inspired by Sprite, like the story, like about how they came up with Peter Pan. Like, Sprite was the inspiration, in the comics for that character. And then it just became like, now she's Tinkerbell. I just didn't really care for the interpretation of Sprite's character because I felt like they had so much great stuff to work with. Other than, I think the best moment she had is when she was telling the story. But other than that, I think that it was just weak, and I would have preferred her to be more like the character from the comic books. With her, I feel like it just didn't work because I felt like they took away that Peter Pan essence of the character, and for me, it just kind of made her seem like, oh, now she's kind of like Tinkerbell, and it's just, I
but
think
she
that
wasn't like, and that was the problem. She wasn't, for me,
I
she
know, but
wasn't
they
even like
tried.
Tinkerbell. They
She
tried, but
wasn't. She
like
wasn't, but with the
like if you're
love
gonna
aspect of
sexualize her, if you're
it,
gonna sexualize her and you're gonna make her, if you're gonna change her gender and you're gonna make her Tinkerbell, then unfortunately they needed to sexualize her a little more, and they didn't. They just
I,
made her like a kid who just had a crush on Icarus. That's all they
yeah.
did. They didn't really give her any elements of. I think there was a throwaway line in the movie where they were like, where she said something along the lines of, I wish I could really be a woman or something like that, or I could. It's like she
Yeah.
wanted to experience those things, meaning I thought she was kind of referencing her sexuality because she was
Yeah.
talking about her love for Icarus or whatever, or her crush or whatever that was. I was really confused that entire time because I know the character from the comics and this was not the character. So
It's just, I just found it, yeah, it's odd. I found it so ridiculous because then they like sexualize her and then make her a female. And then like, it's just, and then like her whole message is like, I'm not, valid because this is this man.
Are you muted?
It
Oh, you cut out for a second.
did I just seem like really weird, like I don't know. It was strange in my opinion. Like the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, we could. I mean, I honestly, it's like we could, as fans of the comics, we could actually do an entire show just on the character of Sprite
Sprite alone. Yeah,
because
that was like the main one that I have the most issues out of, so
uh-huh.
too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
for me,
agree.
yeah.
I agree 100% with you on that. And I know there's going to be movies when it comes to these comics and we break down these movies where you and I are going to vehemently disagree with each other, but I don't think that Eternals is one of them. I think this movie, honestly, I think you and I, as comic book readers, are going to kind of be on the same page for this one, Ashley. I really
Yeah.
don't think, because again, I'm looking at this movie from the perspective of an Eternals comic book reader. This is one of the reasons why I was so excited for this movie, because I really wanted to see what they were going to do with it, and I felt like it was going to be. I was almost as hyped for this movie as I've been for, any comic book movie that I really wanted to see, including as a DC fan, including Zack Snyder's Justice League. I was really hyped up for Eternals because I thought, my God, this is another Jack Kirby story. This is something where we can get, where we're dealing with the Celestials, we're dealing with, gods, we're dealing with, more mythological concepts and deeply layered things that this movie just didn't really explore. This movie
No, it
was
didn't.
so surface level. And
Yeah.
I understand you're not going to get decades of runs of comics in one movie, but here's the question I have for you, Ashley. Do you think that this movie, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be seeing it completely incorrectly, but I felt like this movie felt like the third movie in a trilogy.
It does, because like I think there it's also, you also have too many characters, right? I like the fact that we're the fact that you had 10 of them in this one movie, instead of like, you know, breaking it up somehow, because you I felt like the 10 of them, like nobody really got the character development that they also really needed outside of Circe, and even hers was just like this watered down. I love, you know, I really don't think that they explored who the characters were. I mean, they gave us little snippets at times, but I think in the course of this film, we really didn't understand who they truly were, you know? And I
Right,
think
and I
that
feel
that's
like
why
this
I
movie
agree.
gave us
Yeah.
that. Yeah, this movie gave us that. Like, they just thrust these characters into this story and then just kind of tried to, it's like they built the entire film on flashbacks that I personally felt like out of all the flashbacks that they did, the good majority of the flashbacks would have made for any one of those flashbacks would have made for a better movie than the one that we
Exactly.
got.
Like if they would have focused on, like, if yes, like that battle when, you know, Droog is like, you know, mind controlling everybody there, like that,
Mhm.
all of that, it would have been a better story than your synthetic beings and we're going to destroy the world, and we're waking up to him, you know, the sleeping celestial, which is cool, but it just seemed really rushed along
Yeah.
the way, you know?
Yeah. So like they didn't have confidence in Eternals like they did Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, to say, let's just go along with it and give us kind of like an origin story and kind of start it out and make it a little more comic book accurate, and
Yeah.
then build off of that and make a couple more movies, and then you skip to the end and you say, and it says the Eternals will return. It's just kind of like, I don't know that I necessarily want to see more of these
I
characters
know.
being used in this way. And I have to say this, I hated the way Icarus was portrayed in this
Oh,
movie. I felt like the character in the comic
oh my
books
God.
is so much more developed. He has such a much more, and it's like they made him so one dimensional in this movie, whereas like in the comic books, he understands who he is. He's very self-aware. He understands what his role is. At one point, there's this part in the comics where he actually comes out and says, my purpose in life is to serve the celestials. That's why I'm here. Earth is,
Yes,
Earth
yes,
is insignificant when this society is gone and over with. There'll be another society that'll come and replace it, and we will live on. Like, it's something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing,
yeah.
but I mean, they really could have made him a lot more. I mean, I know what they were going for. They were trying to make him broody and Snyder Superman like. That's the kind of feeling I
Yeah.
got from it. But they didn't even succeed in that, because all they did was take a good character, Icarus, and just make him constantly bitter the entire time. And the character of Icarus is not bitter like that.
No,
So
and then yeah. And
I
another
don't know.
thing, Zod, is like through, like, he has this whole idea, you know, this whole thing through the whole movie, and in the last second he flips and then he flies himself into the sun. I was like, why is it so on the nose? I remember I was in the movie theater watching this, and like when he flies into the sun, just twist my lips up. Saw it. I was just like, "What are we doing?" It's like through the whole movie, he was like, we are here to serve the Celestials. Okay, I understand that, and this is like this inner conflict and dilemma, but like he flipped so quickly, which seemed weird and it didn't make sense. And then also just like too on the nose, like him flying into the sun. It's just like, why like build up this character in this way, and try to make him seem, very real, even though he's very different and kind of like tormented, and just to kill him in the end. Like he doesn't learn a lesson. There's no growth for the next
Right.
film.
There was no arc whatsoever. It was just kind of like ah
Ideology.
I'm in love, but I have nothing to live for. To hell with this. I'm just gonna go fly in the sun and end my existence completely. I mean, he just kind of, it was like he was aimless the entire time, and I kind of felt like at the end when he flew into the sun that it just was like a waste of a character. You could have did that movie and not even had Icarus in that film. You could have saved Icarus for another movie, or just used Icarus in the flashbacks to showcase the romance and to try to and make him a little bit more mysterious and build him up for the next movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what the purpose was. I felt so bad because I'm like, this could have been a cool character. Icarus could have been comic book accurate. Icarus could have, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that Icarus should have had a mullet and long flowing blonde hair, but Icarus could have been a little bit more true to who his character was. And I'm just going to say, out of all the characters in the movie who were disappointing to me, Icarus is number 2, right underneath Sprite.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like going back to what you said, and I want to kind of go back to that. It's like they had so many things. It's like they almost had a good movie idea, And like you said, it's just like, why try to do all of this in this one movie? And it does feel like the third movie. Like once you said that, like I'm really thinking about, yes, it's like it's so over the top. There's so much happening that this should have not. This is like Eternals 3. Really.
Yeah, especially with the Celestials too, with the way they were used, with the way that it kind of felt like the Celestials were putting into fruition like their big final plan, like their grand plan. Like this didn't seem like this was something that, this was a good starting point at all.
No, I feel like, and then I don't like how they did the stuff with the deviants either. Like it just.
Are they trying to say that any metahuman or any human with superpowers, are they trying to say that the deviants are? Because I know the comic books kind of alluded to this a little bit, but are the deviants like superheroes? Are deviants superheroes? So like,
I know that they Avengers are predators that they can evolve, but it was just like they were weird monsters until we get to the one point. And it's just like, that's not. Why did they do that with the deviants? They were just like predators. And then I think that they're going to use like, like how like there's the deviants, the humans, and the Eternals, right? And then from there, the but I don't know, because like these Eternals didn't like try to advance humans and create mutants. So I I don't
Yeah,
understand.
I'm in agreement with you there. I don't think
I don't
they didn't do
understand
anything. They didn't do
what.
anything that their comic book counterparts did. They did nothing like that.
There's
Nothing
no
of the sort.
Olympia.
Yeah, right.
There's
There's
like,
no Olympia. There's no mythology. There's no believability. There's no belief that they actually were there since the beginning. And it makes even less sense dropping
they're
the
just
Eternals
synthetic
in
beings.
this universe at this point in time, post something like Endgame. You drop the Eternals in here now, and people are scratching their heads saying, "Well, where were you? Where were you during all of this? What was
They don't
your
get
role?"
involved if
Yeah,
deviants
we
aren't
don't get
there.
involved with deviants. But here's the thing. This is why I'm saying, do they consider superheroes in a sense to be deviants? Because I didn't really get I got what the deviants were in terms of like how you said they were made. There were deviants that were literal deviants that were the predators that they were just that the Celestials were
Yeah,
just
and
using. But
and
yeah.
does Thanos not have the deviant gene? Like what? It's like
Right. He's a perfect example. Like they don't
like
like there's this one comic book issue of Eternals where you literally have the Eternals bowing before Thanos
yeah.
because Thanos gets control of the Celestials and somehow gets control of of the Eternals, and it would have made the plot of that comic book would have made such a much better plot for the film. I mean, they could have brought Thanos back for that, and I would not have been disappointed. Maybe have it be a little bit more where like you had the Eternals feeling that they needed to interfere or needed to do something, but they failed, thus making the events of the prior MCU movies even more important.
Yes. It's just I just felt like they
Like
took the
Kupi
whole
Malik has a question
Eternals.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So can anyone tell me, did Mandarin's rings were used to be bracelets ring, or were they finger rings in the first place?
There were finger rings
They
in the
were finger
comics.
rings in the comics.
But
Yeah.
but they were alien, technology, as well. So, but then I didn't mind in Shang-Chi. We'll probably get to that another time that they turned those into bracelets. I thought it looked kind of cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi was definitely a better film than this one.
Yeah.
I mean,
mean,
this
it
one
still
really is it had its
Yeah.
issues, but this one is like, if this one, my biggest problem with this one too was the pacing. It was all over the place.
It's just I've watched it. The first time I watched it, I was like, okay, not bad, right? Like, and then I watched it again and I was like, oh, this is, and then by the third time I watched it, because now I've seen it 4 times, the third time I was like, this is not good. Like, like I feel like I've seen like it like now 4 times, but by the second time I was like, ugh, like the first time I was like, okay, it's all right, but it's really not.
I went into it wanting to love it. I really did. I was hyped for it. I don't know, because when I was talking to you, I know you were holding back some things at first, and I was thinking to myself, my God, I can't wait to watch this movie because I used to read the comic books. So I'm like, I'm excited. This is going to be fun. I was like, and everybody kept talking about how, oh, Icarus is just like Superman. You're going to love Icarus in this comic. And in a lot of ways, I took issue with that because I was like, well, Icarus really isn't like Superman in the comic books. He's more mythological. He has more of a single-minded belief, but it's fleshed out quite well with the Celestials. So I was a little bit worried about how they were going to portray him on screen. But then I'm like, I saw the trailers for the Eternals and I was excited. I'm like, oh, this could be cool. But then like when I watched the movie, I'm like, oh no, they really needed an editor. They needed a lot of things. And like I said, because I wanted to love this movie, I was giving it every chance, Ashley. I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe Sprite will change from Tinkerbell to Peter Pan at the end of the movie. Maybe
Yeah,
they'll make
right.
her, maybe the Celestials will turn her into him, into what she was supposed to be. That's what I kind of thought they were going to do at the end when she was spoilers, she was made human at the end.
Yeah, she was just like had a Pinocchio moment. It's like I want, it's just like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
it
we
just,
all have Pinocchio moments in life, right? How
yeah,
realistic is that?
yeah.
I just was like, okay, so now she's just a woman,
But she
but
still has her
the
powers.
irony is she's still a kid,
But
and
still
now
has her powers too.
she still has her powers, and she has to grow up. She's gonna be treated like a kid because she's essentially. I don't know. You have to go. You have to go to school.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was
Yeah.
I was blown away. I was just blown away at how missed the characterizations were. I just thought to myself, boy, I was looking for a bright spot, and the only bright spot I could find that stood out was the Celestials. They deserve their own movie.
Yeah, and if I know, like, it still would have been like they're synthetic beings, but it could have been like, instead of being like we make them, it should have been like Airsham is our father type. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
It
if
should
they
have
would
been,
have
yeah,
done that,
like a loyal
like he is our creator,
children
our
cried. Like,
father,
this
like
is
he's
our
our
creator, our
father.
God. This is the one we worship. This is our, not just some, like the way it was. Yeah, because they were pretty much, they were never, the biggest problem, none of the Eternals actually had any real convictions in this movie either. Everybody was so
Icarus
quick to turn on everyone.
until
Yeah.
the moment, and then Kango, who was like, I agree with Icarus, but I'm not going to fight my friends. Bye, guys.
So the film elitist wants to know, Zod and Ashley, what is the single worst comic book movie in your opinion? If you keep watching these shows, we will get to our worst. We will do that. We're going to get to that at one time. See, this is I'm a film elitist. We are going to cover, Ashley and I are going to cover so many movies. It's not even funny. There's so many movies that we can talk about, that each episode is going to be devoted to a single film, so that the episodes are not like 8 hours long or anything like that. We're gonna definitely, cover any comic book movies that we want to talk about. So we will get to the worst. And it's funny because I wouldn't say that this movie is the worst, but I would definitely put this in the lower tier of comic book movies.
It's one of the, when it comes to like MCU, it's like, it's down there.
It doesn't even, and not only, and I'm not even talking about it in terms of being an MCU movie. I'm just talking about it in terms of it being a comic book movie in general. It's just bad. Like, it doesn't, like, it doesn't move the needle at all. Like, it doesn't move the needle at all on any level. The MCU would be completely fine if this movie didn't exist.
Yeah, like, and I was really excited to like see a movie where it's like the history of like, the MCU and how the world, and it was just like if you would have just showed me that, and so instead of like bringing them into the present day, like exactly like you said, if you showed me them have this thing in the past, and then this movie like where Airsham is more like their father, and then save the sleeping Celestial till a later film,
right, make the Celestials like a big reveal, something important, like put some drama into it, the way Kirby did it in the comics. Make the Celestials a big issue. And Batan, this is great. If they can't interfere, then why were they allowed to help humanity progress in technology? Is that not considered interfering? I know in the comics, a lot of the stuff that they did, it was all about them not interfering. Almost every issue, there was something in there about not being allowed to interfere, that we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. But I don't know, the technology element, I do think feels a little bit hypocritical, though.
The thing is, they were allowed to help them advance, but when it came
Yeah.
to war, from the way they described it here, is in this film, is like they can help advance, help society, but when it comes to wars, they can't get involved, or like fights. You know,
Right,
it's
because they clearly, whatever side they're on would clearly have the advantage. And truthfully, the only side that they would be on is the side of the Celestials.
yeah, I mean, and it just, I don't, it just, I really would have preferred if it would have been like, you know, the first film. I think that they were so concerned with like bringing it into modern day and feeling like that they would have lost people with that. But I think that you could have told us a story from like them, you know, being on Earth and, you know, having this, you know, battle with the deviants at, you know, that could have been, you know, on a bigger scale at the end of the first movie. You know what I'm saying? And then let the deviants be the focal point, right, of the first movie. And then even like the deviants that we know from the comic books, like they're just, you know, they're just as advanced in their own right. And
Imagine
yes,
Thanos getting control of the deviants and getting control of the Eternals. Just
you know
saying.
you know, and then like showing us like that they had this, like, you know, at the end, in some way that we see them have this treaty where they're, you know, they're ending this war, you know, at the end of the first film. And then in the second, you know, or just, I don't know. I just didn't like the way that they handled the deviants as just like these literal monsters instead of these, you know,
Literal monsters is the problem.
advanced
Yes.
beings that look like monsters, right? And that was part of them, people misunderstanding them because of how they looked,
Because
right?
they were made too literal in this movie.
Yeah, I just feel like it was. I feel like you had so many great opportunities to tell a good story. First, we could have cut down some of the Celestials. I mean, excuse me, some of the Eternals this time around, and maybe met some, you know, in the second film. Because like I love, like, to me, Gilgamesh, he had the least amount of screen time, but him and Thena, like, I felt like I got who they were.
They
Out
were
of
they were good.
everyone.
They were good characters, though. They weren't
Yeah.
particularly. They weren't all that accurate to the books,
No.
but they were good characters for this film and for this mythology that they were starting off. The more I watched of this, I thought they could have used Eternals as a surprise in Endgame, because they never interfere, right? They're not supposed to interfere. If you're showing a galactic threat on that level, a good way to introduce them would have had them showing up in Endgame, and then you could have built up, you know, something for some kind of movie. But we both agree that this movie felt like the third movie in a trilogy that we never got to see, and the flashbacks really didn't do anything but show that there were better movies than the one that we got.
Yeah.
I
Things
mean,
you could have focused
even
on.
even the wedding, you know, with Icarus. I mean, all of that stuff was more compelling to me. Show us their relationship. Show us how deeply in love they really were. Get Kit Harington the hell out of this movie.
I know.
And folk, what was the purpose of Kit Harington being in this movie at all?
Just because we're getting the Black Knight, like it wasn't really like they were like, ooh, this love story. Like he was barely in the movie and didn't he? And like I'm excited.
He didn't do anything but take up screen time. He took up screen time from Icarus. They could have.
Like
I don't
I'm
know.
excited to see him, but in the MCU, but it just was like, why? Like why? If you're gonna put him in the movie, like the amount of screen time he had just seemed like a nothing burger for his character. And I understand like we get introduced to characters in like small doses, like the way that
Right.
the MCU does things. But in
Mhm.
this movie, it just didn't seem natural, organic to the story. So it just felt like, oh, okay, um, I know why he's here because you want to introduce him to us instead of like feeling like the way that they introduce a character where it feels natural and just really part of the story. It just seemed like it didn't fit.
Right, right. I agree completely. I'm amazed because I knew that you and I were going to agree on a lot of concepts about this movie, but I just didn't realize we were going to agree on this level. But we just do, because this movie is just I don't know, like they just, I feel like they just didn't do their job here. And Skywalker the Jedi says Icarus and Circe had terrible chemistry as well. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, they didn't, because we didn't get enough of them. They
And I
could have given us, an entire story arc that made sense with them, but they brushed it aside. They hinted at this, they showed little bits of this, they tried to show Icarus being angsty over this, and a lot of it I think was just pent up horniness on the side of Icarus. I mean, maybe he just had a really, really bad case of it. That's what made him fly into the sun. I don't know. It was terrible, though. I
Yeah.
felt horrible for both of those characters. Like,
And yeah.
it's
And Gemma Chan was so wooden and just
uh-huh. Yes. 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 Very, very bad acting. Uh
just
bec-
dry.
Maybe he was directed to be that dry. I don't know.
But she
I
was
mean,
supposed to be this caring, loving, who loves
loving
humans.
character. Yeah. I mean, I just was I was turned off by so much of this movie that it bothered me, because this is one of the things I tend to be very, those who know me know that I tend to be very critical of both Marvel and DC. And a lot of it, when it comes to like a lot of these movies, all I ask is that like a lot of these newer movies that are coming out, all I ask is that they make sense. That's all I
Yeah.
ask. And this movie failed, at least on that basic level, because like I said, I went into this movie wanting to love it. Like, I'd seen the trailer, I was hyped for it, I thought, oh my god, this is going to be great. There's a lot of very Kirby-esque, there's a lot of Kirby-esque imagery in here, but it's one thing to take the imagery but then not do anything with it. and
Yeah.
and that that's and that's a sad commentary. I mean,
And I think that most of the characters outside of like a few were not very likable. And the ones that were barely on screen long enough. Um really. Like like Athena, that's because Angelina Jolie is Angelina Jolie, and
yes, yes, Thena was done about as well as could be expected. I don't think that
yes.
I don't really think that she was she was the one character. I think you found the, you just mentioned the one character in Eternals that did a good job resembling her comic book counterpart. She kind of had that, at least in terms of attitude and spirit. She kind of
Hmm.
uh they kind of, I think they did a good job with her, but even still, they didn't give her enough to do.
Yeah, because it would just, and then even though Ajax is slightly different here, and we barely saw, we didn't see Ajax a whole lot, but that, but the performance from Selma Hayek, from what little bit we did have her, I felt like it was a good performance, you know?
Salma Hayek would have been awesome if this was the first movie and not the third movie.
Yeah, because like I felt like, why give her, like, she could have, I just felt like when she was on screen, I was like, okay, I'm invested, and then she's gone. You know, as quick as, like, you know, and then she's gone. You know, and she was at first going into it. I was like, I don't know, she's gonna be Ajax, you know, and it could have worked if it wasn't like so rushed and so quick with her, you know, because I got the feeling that she really was the Prime Eternal, you know, but they just didn't do enough, you know. And then Fastos, I mean, I don't know. It's like he has a family, but it's like we really don't explore the family aspect. It's just like, I have a family, so I'm ready to save the world. I don't.
This
And then
was
he
like a rushed. This was so rushed that they didn't have time for anybody. So I'm with you on asking, why'd they have so many characters in this movie? They could have gotten by with just a few, you know, and building around this and then saving more for sequels.
they could have gave us 6 characters, right?
Yeah, sure.
You know, which is still a lot, you know. But 6, if you would have Kango, cut out Kango, you know, this time around, you know, like, if Gilgamesh is hardly in the movie, even though, like, I feel like the dynamic with him and Thena are important. I mean, maybe cut him out, like Druig. Like, I feel like he was so underused that I would have rather him be cut out and then see him in the next film, you know, because there was just like so many people, so many characters in the movie, and like, you really didn't give me enough time to care about who they were. I cared, like, the character that I cared the most about was Erishon. Like, you know, like, because he was the most,
He was
you
the
know,
most. He was the one that made the most sense out of all of them.
yeah, like, yeah, he's a celestial. He just like lit. Yeah, I mean, I like the way that the Celestials looked in this movie, and the scaling. I think they did a good job with that. You know, with how they were represented on this grand scale. You know, um, and I really did like the shot at the end where, like, they come back, you know, and like they pull them from where they are on Earth, and he's like talking to them. So I felt like he's great, you know what I mean? Because I thought that was like the coolest moment when he's like,
That was very
you know what?
Kirby. That was very Kirby-ish. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
when he
good.
was like, when he told them, he was like, your memories will serve as their judgment. You know, like, I really thought that was great. Like, anytime like he was on there, like, I felt like, even though it's like this great, you know, godly, one above all kind of creature, I felt like he was really one of the most compelling things about the movie. You know, and my favorite part is when he, like, basically says, oh, you think you won, but you haven't. You know, at the end, to me, like, I was like, okay, now I'm interested to see where this goes. But it wasn't because I cared about the characters and the decisions they made. It's because I'm curious to see what he will do. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense there?
Yes,
You know?
exactly. I agree completely. The Celestials are the most important element of this, and the whole. I mean, because even in the comics, the whole concept of the Celestials is that even if the Eternals want to in some way defeat the Celestials or go against the Celestials, they cannot. They have no way of doing it. They will be instantly stopped because the Celestials are the ones who gave them life. So there is no fighting the Celestials if you are Eternals. And Icarus understood this, but he also was very poorly developed and very uninteresting.
Yes. And just
Unfortunately, Zod and Ashley, which one do you believe created the humans, Celestials or One Above All? I think the One Above All created humans.
yes. I mean, but right now it seems like from what they're saying to us in the context of this that it's Celestials, but I
Yeah.
don't believe it's the Celestials though.
No, I don't think so either. But I think that would be a great film. One Above All, the Celestials give us more of that and less of the underdeveloped characterizations of Eternals.
Yeah, they've got it, but introducing these characters, they've got to do a better job in presenting them in film because they're already like these godlike beings. So what are you going to do to really have them connect with us? And I think that they didn't do a good job with giving us that building that connection with the audience with the Eternals.
And the film elitist says, got some downtime at work, so here's a question. Widow, are BVS and Zack Snyder's Justice League better films than Eternals? I know what Zod will say.
Yes, they're better.
Yeah. My thing is, like I said, I went into Eternals wanting to love it, thinking Ashley, I went into this movie actually believing that Eternals would be my favorite MCU movie of all time. I just had this feeling because it was going to be big in scope. It was going to be, Kirby. I had this thought, like coming off of, the Snyder Cut and seeing, Dark Side and all that. Now I get to see a movie with the Celestials and the Eternals. I'm like, this is going to be huge. This is going to be fantastic. And I had so much high hopes going into it that I just didn't know. I just didn't know what to think about it. And Sharon Peters says that she's still waiting for the Eternals XXX movie. that movie, Sharon, that movie might be out. You just have to check a few places.
Yeah, you just gotta
there
check.
there might be a XXX version of the Eternals. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they make XXX versions of lots of comic book movies.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, it actually, I wouldn't, and this is the funny part. Like, if they did like a XXX parody movie of the Eternals, it would probably be better than the movie we got. That's the sad part, because it would probably be more comic book accurate. Oh my god!
I agree with Bat Dan. Eternals could have been a really good Disney Plus series. I think that with all of the characters and with everything going on, it should have definitely been a television. It should have been a mini series, 6-part, then part 2. How it just should not have been this film where they crammed everything in one film as much as possible without telling a cohesive story. And I think that if it would have been a show, you could have built with these characters a lot more. Oh my
god! Imagine the storylines they could explore with a series.
Yeah, I think that they really should have started it out as a series, and then it maybe it transitioned into, like, if they wanted to make a film, like once we've laid all that groundwork, the history of the Eternals, then even get to that film. But it just did, like, to me, out of everything. Yes.
The flashbacks would have made more sense if we had like a series and these were things that we actually got to see, and then you're referencing them.
And each one of those flashbacks, like you said, is like a full 6-episode thing, even. It's just, I just feel like they wanted to show us them through history and time. and gave us
like a
so many
Highlander
different
episode.
moments. It was just like, well, here they are here, and blue, here they are here, and here they are here. Like, I feel like there's a way to properly do flashbacks in a film where you feel like it's still a cohesive story, right? And that you're getting, and that somehow these moments still are important. Like, I don't understand like how it was so important for them to show us, this epic battle and them falling out and Thena having Mad Weary. Like, how did that connect to the next thing outside of Thena like being knowing something was off because of, I mean, it just did not, to me, it didn't connect to the next thing. Like that story to me, out of all the flashbacks, was the best, and
It
instead
was
of
all
her,
just a setup for. It was all just a setup for Kit Harington and Black Knight.
yeah, and for them to say, and it like that whole scene was just a good setup for them to be like, okay, guys, I want you to go live your own lives. Like, I just, I don't know.
I mean that defeated the whole purpose of the movie. I thought, like you're trying to establish these characters. You kill off Icarus, and then you just decide, oh well, we're gonna let these characters do their own thing, and it's great, happily ever after. A perfect Disney ending. No, no, that's not what you do with the Turtles. That didn't make sense. That was not a good way. I kind of wish that this movie didn't exist. Now that I think about it, I just feel like this movie doesn't fit. Doesn't fit with the MCU. It doesn't fit as a comic book movie. It doesn't even fit as properly representing anything that Kirby wrote in the comics. I feel really, really bad because I kind of feel like there's, like you and I have been talking about, there was so much potential and there were so many little things in this movie that could have been flushed out to be a good movie, and all the flashbacks were potential for good movies or a TV show or something, but we didn't get any of that. Instead, we got a conclusion that again that does feel like a third movie, right? Go ahead, live your life happily ever after, do your thing, right? Doesn't that kind of feel like the way you would wrap things up?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sharon Peters says every time you talk about the Snyder Cut, I can't help but think about circumcision. Well, there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way you do, Sharon Peters. So I try not to talk a lot about that as much. I kind of veered away from talking about those types of things. But yes, it really is a disappointment, to say the least. I think now I understand the frustration you had, even when you and I first talked about this. I kind of get it, and I love being able to sit here and kind of flesh this stuff out with you. It's amazing. God, I wish I could think of one good thing, one really good thing I can think of for the Eternals. I think the visuals were really good. I think it had a lot of nice visual effects.
Visually, like the cinematography was great. It looked beautiful at times, right? But that's about the nice.
Yeah.
That's my nice thing to say.
That's a nice thing to say, that it looked beautiful. It was a beautifully filmed movie.
Yes.
What's her name? Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao. Yeah.
Chloe Zhao. She sculpted a visual masterpiece. It looked beautiful visually, and I think that I would be interested to see what other kinds of films that she does later on.
Did you see Nomad?
But I'm very interested, because I actually looked her up and was going to make it a mission to go back and watch some of her other films, because I do think that she kind of I don't want to say she kind of got in over her head here with Eternals, but she got in over her head with Eternals for real. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
like Nomad is kind of, I mean, it's a good movie, but it can be like, it's kind of like the pacing of it, you know, but it's like, to
yeah,
me, it's not, but visually you understand how she as a director, she immerses herself into this world, you know?
right.
Um, so it's, so I appreciate it. You know, I think she's a wonderful director. Um, I just think that with this story, it was just a lot. It was just so, it was too much and it was all
This
over
would
the
have been
place.
too much. This would have been too much for a lot of directors. I think this movie really, and I don't blame the director at all. I think this movie's kind of just like, I think she wrote the script too, which says a lot.
Yeah,
I
I think she was involved. I can't
so
remember her. Yeah.
she has a bit of a
I know
so
she pitched
she
the concept. It was her concept. She
oh
pitched
so
this.
wow her concept all together. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah. She
know.
pitched the concept like to, you know, this was her pitch. She pitched this, you know, just like Mahershala Ali, you know, pitched his idea for Blade, even though he's not penning the script, you know, he pitched the idea of like Blade to, and she did the same thing with Eternals. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Uh,
with the
well,
next,
Sharon, Ashley and I will be showing our
yes,
faces on stream. It's not that
yeah,
we're not gonna be off screen every single show, but
yes, I'm
this
just, yeah,
particular show we were
yeah,
yeah.
yes,
It's funny though, you know, Ashley. I think this movie I still can't say that it's the worst movie because it does have
yeah,
some some good qualities to it. It wasn't a total loss. Again, like we're talking about, visually it's a stunning movie, but just
yeah.
story wise, it's a mess.
Like it's not like, I don't think it's because like I've seen like comic book films that are just like, yeah, I can think of like ones off the top of my head that this is better. You know, like Dark Phoenix is a horrible movie. Like this is better than Dark Phoenix. You know, it's like better than 2015 Fantastic Four. You know, so it's like even when I compare them to those movies, to me it's not a complete and utter mess as these other films are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it just doesn't work and it falls flat. And I think that you had pieces of a good movie, you know, and I feel like it was just too many things brought together to make this movie instead of focusing on specific things. You put all these elements in the film that when they stand alone, they work. But as an all together, it doesn't, you know, it just doesn't work because it feels like it's a, a bunch of small stories that are incomplete, you know?
Yes, I agree completely. This is amazing that this is our first episode and we agree on everything.
I know, right?
I was sitting here like you and I are gonna have so many episodes where we literally disagree
Yeah.
fundamentally about everything, and here we are with Eternals. We can't find anything where we disagree with each other.
Yeah.
It's like this movie was just so underwhelming on so many levels. I mean, what
Yeah.
can I say? Um, we've got Koopy Malik
Yes.
here who says excited for Doctor Strange 2 and Moon Knight. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely excited for
yeah,
I like Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness has been the film that I am the most even but like I love, you know, Spider-Man. I still, my hype level for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was 10 times what it was for No Way Home, you know? And it's I just can't wait.
yeah. Doctor Strange. I consider to be one of the better MCU movies, in my opinion. I love uh, Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal of Doctor Strange. I think he nails the character. And I'm really looking forward to Multiverse of Madness as well. I think
Yes.
that's a movie that's going to touch on a lot of concepts and things that we've seen in Doctor Strange comics over the decades, and things that are going to, of course, filter into the MCU. And I actually think that we're going to see a lot of the Doctor Strange elements from that What If TV show that was on
I
Disney
know.
Plus.
Yeah, I think that they're introduced. They put that stuff in What If so they could introduce those concepts. Like, I really want to see the Watcher. Like, to me, I really want to see the Watcher and Jeffrey Wright. Being this live action version of him, because the voice is amazing. And like, I had issues with What If, but I felt like he worked really well. And then like the Sorcerer Supreme episode was really good. There were a few episodes here and there and What If that worked. And I think all the stuff with Doctor Strange worked really well.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm my actually, and a lot of people may not know this because I don't really get a whole lot of time to talk about Marvel, because I'm mainly focused on DC stuff. But since I'm here with you, I could say this. I mean, that my favorite episode of the What If series is that Doctor Strange episode.
Yeah, it
I
was
think
my
that
favorite.
episode is just out of the park, one of the greatest episodes you could ever do, because it sort of puts it just, that series to me is like full of real stakes, that What If series. And that
Yeah.
episode really hits home. And yeah, I want to see the Watcher appear in live action. I think that would be magnificent.
I'm hoping that we see him in Multiverse of Madness. For some reason, I'm like, that's like the one thing, the one scoop we don't like. That would be amazing, to see him.
It would be absolutely amazing. And Bat Dan says, if I recall correctly from one of Sill's shows, Ashley does not like Man of Steel. I can't wait to see that video. Oh,
Okay.
well,
I
we'll
don't
talk about
Man of
Man of Steel, but
I just
I
had
mean,
issues with it as an overall as a film. And then when I talk about things, people only hear what I don't
what they
like.
want to hear. They hear what they want to hear. They don't hear what you're actually saying.
Yes.
Because you and I are able to actually sit down and have a conversation and this is one of the things I mean, I like to be able to have conversations and be able to disagree, but be able to have a conversation and hear both points of view. That's what I always love. So I don't care if you agree with me or disagree with me. I'm not going to disrespect you in any way. And that's one of the main reasons why it's so exciting to do this kind of a show, because you get it just feels good, and there's a lot of chemistry. Sharon Peters says, does Ashley know about your love of chocolate women, Zod? Well, I guess she does now, Sharon, if she didn't know before. But yes, I do. I have an affinity for African American women. I love African American women. That's my thing. Sharon says, I love Men of Steel as long as they're hot. Okay, Sharon, that's cool. And Zod and Ashley, do you think that we'll see Shuma Gorath appearing in it? Maybe.
I mean,
why not?
I don't think that's what I think that they've changed. It's not Shimagorth. It's they're not doing that at all.
I'm still sitting here. I'm still scratching my head. I still, when I think of the MCU overall, I still scratch my head and want to know how they did Infinity War without Adam Warlock. I still find that very difficult to accept as a Marvel Comics reader growing up. To me, I feel like you could have had some badass stuff in it with Adam Warlock. You could have had some amazing scenes, and you could have got a really great actor to play Adam Warlock too.
Yeah, I mean, but now we're getting them in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So we'll see.
Will Porter's gonna. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see. My guess is the Watcher would be CGI. Yeah. The Watcher probably. Although, I don't know. Do you think if they do show the Watcher in live action that he'll be played by Jeffrey Wright? I don't see
would
why
hope
not.
so. I would
I see
like
why
that.
not.
I mean, that
great.
voice. I'm telling you, his
Yeah.
like he's like Morgan Freeman. Like he's got that voice, that very like, worldly, like superior, that voice, and it just, yes, like I think that it would be a waste to have, unless they're just not going to introduce him in live action, which I hope that that's not the case, for someone else to portray the Watcher, because I mean, like, my favorite parts of the Watcher, of What If, is when he's narrating, like the opening, like when he speak, like anything that he says, like he could like
you could be talking about grass growing, and you'd be excited, like, oh,
yeah, this is how you tie your shoe. This is how you cut butter. Like any of these things,
this is how you cut butter.
Gimme, in that voice,
Oh yeah, the opening. I agree with you. The opening to What If is like the most badass element. And I keep telling people all the time, and they think I'm crazy, but I always say, no, What If reminds me a lot of the 1990s revival series of The Outer Limits. It has that real, because the whole thing about, technology run amok and all these various concepts of things going wrong, and you get a lot of that, you get all that in What If, but you get it in a with a superhero aesthetic, and it's really cool. I mean, I don't know, I actually really love that show. I think that show is pretty awesome, and because you're dealing with alternative realities, and you're dealing with different takes and different concepts, you can literally tell any story you want, and you don't have to worry about it fitting in with any kind of canon or whatever, because it's What If.
Yes. And I really, but I don't know if we'll talk about What If one day and like the overall feelings of that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think parts of it worked and some episodes didn't,
Yeah. I mean, I can agree with you there. Like I kind of had issues with the zombie episode a little bit.
Oh gosh, I didn't like the Captain Carter. I didn't like the Black Panther Star-Lord. I didn't like Black Panther being Star-Lord. I mean, I was happy to hear T'Challa, to hear Chadwick Boseman again, but I thought
that was weird. That was just weird.
It was just like a silly, like like my little nephew loved it. I felt like,
sure, it's gonna appeal to children.
Yeah, like that episode, like that was his favorite, right? Okay. And then the Party Thor episode seems like really for the kids too. You know what I mean? Those two episodes really felt
and it seemed like Chris Hemsworth really enjoyed playing Thor like that. It seemed like he was having so much fun playing Party Thor that you could literally smell the beer on his breath when he was talking.
Right? Didn't you learn from Endgame that drinking doesn't help you at all, Thor? It just brings you down to places you don't need to be.
I mean, that was like, but what I do love is that when they do those kinds of shows and they do bring back the original actors to voice the characters, it gives them, it allows them to have fun and play the characters in unique and interesting ways that they may never ever. Well, otherwise they would never get a chance to play the characters in that way. So in that regard, I think it's a cool thing, and I'm sure
Yeah.
Chadwick Boseman probably had fun with the idea of
Yeah.
playing Black Panther from a different perspective. But I agree with you, as a comic book fan, it just seemed kind of ridiculous to say the least. But yeah. We've got idea for a future episode, Zack Snyder's
Yeah.
Watchmen. Sure, we'll get
And
there.
then, yes, absolutely. And I was going to say, what was I going to? Oh, I had a whole thing I lost my train of thought. It was about what if.
Oh, okay.
No, oh yeah. When you think about it, now look, because another episode that I really liked was like Who Killed the Avengers, like like Monday, and
Oh
I
yeah,
thought that was
yeah,
a really good episode. And when you think about it, every episode that we see Tony Stark in, he dies, right? And it came up, and I wonder if it's cool if they're ever going to revisit that. Possibly his death in each of his universe is like an absolute point, because every episode of What If, he dies in Endgame. So I wonder if it's kind of like on that idea, like what we learn about Christina, that her death for Doctor Strange is an absolute point, because
it's a fixed point. It's a
yeah,
fixed
yeah.
point in time.
And
It
I
cannot be
think that
changed.
Tony Stark is in this world has the same fate.
A permanent fixture. He cannot.
Yeah.
In every reality, Tony Stark has to die in order for the heroes to succeed.
Yeah, and he's died,
or even for the heroes to fail. He dies anyway. He just dies. Yeah. Death is Tony Stark's destiny, regardless. But I mean,
Jericho,
I don't know. I guess you could say that about everybody.
You always like Jericho Phil. Here we go. It's not. I'm not a big DC reader when it comes to comics. Right? I've read Batman, Bat Family. And some Flash stuff. I've always been very spot on with that. You hear me go against Nerdman a lot, and his craziness against Marvel stuff. But I don't dislike DC properties. I mean, there's films that I feel like don't work, and it's not because. It's because of WB and some of the things that they do. So I think I've always been pretty clear on where I stand about specific films. Dan, you're fine. No offense taken.
That's gonna be a fun episode when we revisit Man of Steel, because we've had a lot of conversations, and I think we talked about. Well, we actually did talk about Man of Steel on one of Nerdman's episodes not too long ago, and so Man of Steel will be covered in this series at some point, but just not right away.
And you probably know where a lot of my issues in that movie come from.
Mm-hmm.
And two of them. So, it's just.
And I've made my peace with it. I understand. I mean, and that's the thing, especially because unlike Eternals, where we can pretty much universally say right here that we agree. Like Eternals, not every movie is going to be like that. You're going to get some movies where we will disagree. I can guarantee you guys that it's not going to be all just Zod and Ashley agree on everything. I can tell you that. But this particular movie that we're talking about tonight for our first show just happened to be that way. I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those movies. I don't know. Hey, Gary, good to see you.
Where, Zod hates Tom Holland's Peter Parker, and then I'll cry, or something.
But see, this is what I love about. But this is what I love about you and me doing this show. My tastes and my viewpoints on a lot of things have evolved since that time that you and I talked about MCU versus DCU back in the day. That was a while ago. We've had so much time. Can change things, and remember, we got a whole new Spider-Man movie since then. So it's kind of a different thing.
After all, we were stagnant for so long, and now we're getting all this content. So we should all be happy and screaming from the rooftops, right?
Absolutely. Hey, Rhea, it's good to see you. So glad
Hi,
that you're here with
Raya.
us. Always good to see Rhea in the chat.
She's
Rhea
a
is
sweetheart.
always super positive and
Yes.
respectful towards everyone. Gotta love Rhea. And wonder what again will what wonder what will they use for Marvel Zombies. I like when the origin was the necro the Necromicron Marvel Zombies versus the Evil Dead. That would be interesting. Marvel Zombies versus the Evil Dead. Although I did not really like the Marvel Zombies episode in What If.
I didn't either. I mean, I kind of like the whole idea of like it being, Janet Van Dyne and his love for her, for her, and she brings the virus over. But other than
Yeah.
that, everything else just was like silly.
And the film elitist says Ashley likes to pick on me about my blind love for the Batman since it hasn't come out. What are your thoughts, Zod? And Ashley, besides Catwoman, what worries you about the film the most? Well, not to talk about DC tonight, but all I will say is that I think the Batman is something that Ashley and I may end up agreeing on, because this is one thing that really has been bothering me about people. They seem to have blind hype and blind hope and blind love for this movie, and Pattinson has done nothing to earn that. It just seems like
Yeah.
people are just jumping on the bandwagon just because it's a new Batman movie, and I can't stand that. I know if you're a Batman fan, you tend to gravitate towards any Batman movie that comes out. But I've got my trepidations. I've got my worries. I don't like what I'm seeing so far, and I don't really think it's going to be a particularly good movie, but I could be wrong. So I choose not to say anything until after I've had a chance to actually see the movie.
Like, my thing is like when people like, I feel like they're willing to forgive like silly little things that I've seen in the trailer, but like if it was in this other movie, it's like that's silly. That makes no sense. Like, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, if this car drives through a funeral that no one is touched, that no one is affected, that no one moves until they're that they say run. Like, if you see a bomb, especially those people up front, granted, maybe the people in the far back kind of might not see what's going on, but are you going to literally stand there? If someone's like, oh, there's a bomb. Oh, shoot. Now I run. And to me, it just like some of it felt slightly silly, right? To me, within that trailer. And then like the delivery of like, hey, bro, that's Bruce Wayne. Like, it just, like, I don't know. It's just like,
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like people
The
are
way
willing
that
to
police officer
forget.
was like, the way he was like all geeked for Bruce Wayne, like Bruce Wayne was like Justin Timberlake or something. He seemed like he was a groupie. Like, oh, look at
Yeah. Yeah. And like
Bruce
I
Wayne.
point, yeah, and like it's like I feel like I'm being very fair, basing things off of what I've seen in the trailer. Because when I saw the No Way Home trailer, I was like, it's slightly cheesy. The CGI looks really bad, and I'm really concerned because to me the trailer was not the best.
Yeah, I agree.
So I feel like I'm being fair with my critique. I'm not judging the film because I haven't seen it. I'm one of the people that I believe that Pattinson has the ability to be an effective Batman. I
Yeah,
don't
he's a
really
good
know about this
actor. I mean,
emo like feeling about Bruce Wayne. I just got to see it, right, to see if it's,
right.
for me it's going to work with Bruce Wayne, because I don't really feel like that's and I'm like, I'm very consistent. Like, a lot of the issues that I had with Man of Steel was that's not Clark Kent at times, and that's not Superman to me. And I'm not going to look at this any differently and be like, oh, Bruce Wayne is this emo guy who's like a loner. To me,
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of that's not Bruce Wayne, and that's not I'm just trying to be very consistent. Like also like when I talk about Andrew Garfield's like Peter Parker and everybody's like excited to see this Peter Parker that doesn't pull his punches, I'm like, I don't want to see that from my Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? So like my concerns with the portrayal of Bruce Wayne, like I'm slightly concerned, and it might not really be how he is. It might just be a few moments where he's down and he's very loner and like emo at time in those few moments. But I'm a little concerned with just like how his Bruce Wayne is going to be portrayed.
Yeah, that dude Vince here says, I think the Batman looks like Zodiac 2.0. Bat Dan says, we have two Batman movies, one being disguised as a Flash movie, worried about both of them. And then we have the Snyder Steppenwolf, who says, Matt Reeves said that this Bruce Wayne is based on Kurt Cobain. What the hell? I say what the hell as well, because I don't really think that Bruce Wayne should be based on Kurt Cobain, even though Wayne and Cobain do rhyme. Other than that, I don't really see much of a thing, but we'll see. I'm going to wait till I see the movie.
I'm going into it with an open mind.
Right.
Because I love Robert Pattinson, I think he's a great actor,
Love Gippy White says, "Sup, troublemakers."
Hey, Gippy.
Good to see you, Gippy. Glad you're here. And yes, we are troublemakers. I have to be, and that's why I say I have to be careful when I talk about DC, because when I talk about DC, I tend to get myself in trouble because I don't always really follow the company line. So I got to be careful too. It's sort of, and this is why, again, it's fun to be on a show with you, Ashley, talking about the movies from a comic book perspective. Because one thing I can say about this upcoming movie, The Batman, is that it does not look like it is going to be comic book accurate at all. But that's just an observation I'm making based off of what I've seen so far. Could be completely wrong. It might end up being the most comic book accurate movie of all time, but I don't think so.
I feel like they're kind of doing what they did with Joker. It's like,
yeah,
like like I'm like, it's like the Zodiac, but what if Batman?
Yeah. So Zodiac
just like the
mixed
Joker,
with Batman and Seven,
and the Joker
together.
Was like, what if the Joker was in Taxi Driver?
right, or the King of Comedy. It really is like that, and I just can't wait.
I like Joker. I like the Joker movie, but I've said it and I'll say it again. That's not a Joker movie. It's just a really good movie, in my opinion.
Oh, Bat Dan, you are 100% right about this. Yeah, you have to agree with the current regime of DC, or else you're toxic. Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's unfortunately true. But see, thankfully, me and Ashley don't give a damn if you think we're toxic or not.
I don't I don't like. Here's my thing. I don't like if somebody wants a specific movie and they want it and all they're doing is tweeting about it. How's that toxic? Like, and why are you on the other end worried because these people want to see a movie? It's just like, to me, it's like, like the people who are like being rude, that's different, to people. But it's just like, why do you care? Because this is what a group of people want. And then you're picking on these, like, I was like, I had been on the other side of that, and it was just like, it's ridiculous. It just gets to the point, ridiculous. Like, why do I care? Because you want a movie, dude. It has nothing, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's ridiculous. Just like, everybody just do whatever, do you. and I'm not in it because it's just like whatever, it's just like people just do too much, like you're so worried about what the next person's doing, worry about what you're doing, and it's gonna make you happy.
Yeah,
And like,
I don't
and that's
understand
it.
yeah, and I've never been able to understand this group think mentality. We're all
Yeah.
individuals, and film and comics and books and whatever else is subjective. It always
Yes.
has been, it always will be. It's meant to be. I don't care what the current societal views are on the pack mentality of you have to think this way. And I'm so
Yeah.
sick and tired of all of that. To me, it's just like I want to get back to the days where I could just enjoy a movie or hate a movie based on the merits of the movie itself, according to me. That's
Yeah.
what I want to be able
And
to look at things like.
people get so offended when you don't like what they like. So
Exactly.
it's like, well, then don't ask me. Like if you if you want to know if I like something, and then I tell you if I like it or not, and then you get offended if I don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Like I'm very passionate in like the way that I express things and like break it down, but you can be on the opposite end of that, and I respect your opinion. If you like something that I don't like,
And we have the great
Okay.
saggy melons in here, the great saggy melons. We all love saggy melons. Saggy says, showing love to the beautiful Ashley. Zod and Ashley are not toxic. I will fight someone if they say otherwise. Well, there are people that have said otherwise for quite a
Yeah,
while. And this was another reason why
I'm
I couldn't wait.
crazy.
I couldn't wait to do this show with Ashley, because Ashley has a reputation of being super crazy. People like to go at her. I have a reputation for some reason of being this troublemaker, being this bad guy. I've been told that my viewpoints are quote unquote dangerous. So guess what?
Yeah, it's just like I'm just like this five. I'm 5'1". I'm short, and I have strong opinions, and I don't back down, and that's it.
Yeah, there you go. And
That's all I have to do.
that's like awesome. And it's
Yeah,
all these different things. It's like this, it's like it's just like the perfect mix. That's why I wanted to do this show, especially given the fact that there are going to be some shows where we will disagree.
yeah,
And
yes,
I honestly can say that with that being the case, we'll disagree. But you know what me and Ashley are going to do? We're going to show people how to disagree. We're going to show
yeah,
people that it's okay to disagree, but we don't have to be disrespectful, because
yeah,
Ashley knows I love her 100%. I am not in any way going to be disrespectful to Ashley, no matter
yeah,
what her opinion or viewpoint is. It doesn't
yes,
matter.
you know,
People are crazy, and
yes,
they're crazy in a different way. In a different way, you could say all you want about our opinions about movies or about comic books or whatever, but at the end of the day, this is all supposed to be entertaining stuff. This is all supposed to be fun stuff. I don't get why
yeah,
some people take things so personally.
yes. I like to talk about it, and I'm an overthinker, and I
Uh-huh.
analyze things and break things down, and like if you and then I do that, and then I feel like sometimes people can be taken back. They're like, what? Like she knows, yeah, because I'm gonna catch you, and I'm gonna twist it, and I'm gonna catch you up, and then throw it back on you. Sometimes, that's what
Yeah.
happens.
And that's a good trait. I mean, and that's really, to me, that's really sexy when you throw it back at them like that,
Yeah,
because
gotta
honestly,
check.
it's what they deserve. It's what they deserve.
Yes,
You're just giving them what they deserve, and it's not anybody's fault but theirs. And that this is what it is. I just love being able to sit down and have a conversation, and
yes, me too.
not care about, and knowing I'm going to come away from the conversation not changing my opinion of a person one way or the other, because at the end of the day, we're talking about comic books, we're talking about
Yeah,
movies, we're talking about entertainment. you're supposed to love this stuff, and it's okay to disagree about it. I mean, whatever. That's what it was made for. Do people realize that this stuff was made so that there will be people who love it and people who will hate it?
Yeah.
Do
And
people
it's
even understand that?
yeah, and it's a more engaging, interesting conversation. Yes, I mean, when two people agree, yeah, like I've like me and you were spot on today, but it makes for a compelling conversation when there's two people on opposite ends, right? And you're hearing each other person out. And it's not about changing the other person's mind. It's about getting your perspective out and how you view it, and then how the other person's views it. And you might disagree and go back and forth, but it's still a conversation of the minds, and just expressing the way you see it. And it's interesting when someone else sees it a completely different way.
Exactly. And then what I love about it is that after you've gotten your disagreements out, you can always turn a corner, because now that you see and you're able to understand the other person's point of view, now you can find common ground.
Yeah, and like I take none of it personal. Like I get very passionate when I'm talking, but it's at the end of the day, if you were right in front of me, I'd shake your hand and be like, "Great, that's fun. You know, you're cool. We got to do that." You know what I mean? Like it's
Well,
not a yeah.
if you were right in front of me, I'd give you a hug. So I disagree on
Oh,
that.
thanks. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
But
That's
you know what I
me.
think is funny? You know what I think is funny though? Like, people will come at you, and I remember the first time I ever had you on one of my
Yeah,
ZodWriter live streams, and that got really heated. There was a
yeah,
panel full of people, and people were arguing, they were yelling,
yeah.
they kind of got things got real, like,
Hmm.
I don't know if there was a time in that particular stream where you felt cornered or whatever, but
No,
you handled yourself
I
well.
can deal with all of it. It's like when you like start like saying things that are just like out of left field and have
Out of left
no
field that
bearing
get personal,
on
that have
what
no
we're
bearing on the
talking
conversation.
about. Yeah, then
Right,
I
right.
don't like six people can come at me and I can deal with that. But when you're like saying things about just like out of to a place where I'm not going to go, like
Out of
I'm not
left
going to
field. Yeah,
yeah,
makes
I'm
no
not going to
sense.
like I'm not going to like make it a personal situation.
Never get personal when you're talking about this kind of stuff. There's no
Yeah.
need to get personal when you're talking about this kind of stuff. I mean, this is the thing that's always gets me. Because I love to laugh, because then I'll say to people, well, you'll get into it with somebody because you disagree on Twitter. Like I'll disagree on Twitter with people about, for example, Robert Pattinson, Batman, or whatever. And at the end of the day, I'll get off Twitter and I'll think about it, and I'll start laughing to myself, literally thinking, we're arguing about Batman. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't get any more ridiculous when you think about what it actually is at the core
Yeah.
of it. Like, you're
Like
arguing about Batman.
that's why with Twitter, like, because I would be like, I would be like typing something and the person respond, and I just get to the like now I get to the point where like I'm not doing this with you. I'm done. Like I just like it's like I'm not gonna keep going back and forth because it's just like it just gets silly. Like now, if we're in the stream, we're talking and we're having the conversation, one thing, but I'm not gonna keep like on Twitter, it gets exhausting because then like there's this
Oh,
one
absolutely.
conversation, 5 seconds later, there's another conversation. It's like I gotta get out of
And
that rabbit hole.
people love to pile on social media.
Yeah.
It just becomes, because people don't, because people just have nothing better to do, it seems like,
Yeah.
especially when you say something that someone doesn't like. And Saggy Melon says, I get called toxic too. I don't care anymore. People don't even know what toxicity is anymore, because they throw it out like it's nothing. And Bat Dan makes a great follow up here. Toxicity is saying something someone doesn't like at this point.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it is. It
Exactly.
really is.
It's ridiculous. Wow. I this I will say, Ashley, that in spite of the fact that you and I both agreed about Eternals, I really enjoyed this conversation we had
Yeah, I
tonight.
did too. And
It
I
was
think
nice to
that
be able to, just lay it all out there.
and for the first one,
Mhm.
We agreed. Next time, we'll see, right?
And
The
we
next,
might not. We haven't decided
yeah,
what next week's episode will be, but we'll
yes,
decide as it gets closer. We'll decide what
yes,
movie we're gonna do because yeah, I just wow, Eternals. I don't know. So to kind of wrap things up, on Eternals,
yes,
uh positives, the visuals,
yes,
negatives, everything else.
yes. Underwhelming character development. It just seemed like fragments of a movie here, a fragment here, and it didn't feel like a cohesive story. Erisham, great. Athena, um, good because Angelina Jolie. Selma Hayek gave a good performance with what she had, but she really didn't have much to do either.
Yeah,
So I guess those are my positives.
yeah. For me, like I say, visuals, negatives, visuals, and the Celestials. I like the
Yes.
Celestial, but everything else, no. I was very disappointed, and I'm more disappointed than anything else because I wanted to love it, and that's my problem. I just wanted to throw it in everybody's faces and be like, Eternals was great. It was the best MCU movie ever. Screw you if you don't like it. It was awesome. It was the best movie since the Snyder Cut. I'm out of here. That's what I wanted to be able to say, but you know what? That wasn't the case. And
Exactly.
so what can I do? So on that note, Arkham Gaming says, I know there are a lot of passionate Batman fans on Twitter, and sometimes they do get out of hand, but they're passionate for Batman, Batman that should never kill, and a lot of times they are comic book fans. The only problem with that, Arkham Gaming, is that Batman does kill, and people need to understand that. In every single Batman movie, Batman has killed. Every
Yeah,
single
and I think
iteration
that,
of Batman, he's killed in
they
some way.
give, and I think that the fact that this Batman is not, they're telling us that he's not going to, right? So
Mhm.
we'll
Who's
see.
telling us though? Is it
I
the fans telling
mean,
us this, or is it Matt Reeves telling us this?
I
Because
don't know.
I
It's
don't know.
we're being told that, but like, yeah, like, Michael Keaton, he killed, but I think that they were just so focused on one, performance of one particular Batman, just because of the way that Batfleck was portrayed, and and like I've watched a lot of like psychological breakdowns about his Batman and the way um he was positioned in the story of BBS, even and it gives it even a bigger understanding of what was happening with him, and then you see the growth of the character in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I
Yeah,
think that with him, I think it made sense, but and it was it was a different take on a character. For me, with him, it worked. In my opinion, it worked at times for me more than some of the things that happened in Man of Steel. That's all I'm going to say about that. But we'll talk about BBS
yeah.
and
We'll
the
eventually get to
understanding. And
BVS and
yeah,
other Batman movies and DC movies and all that stuff. We will definitely get to that, and we're going to definitely get to a lot more Marvel movies and comic
yeah,
book movies that are not Marvel or DC, but
yeah, kick ass.
comic book movies in general. Yeah, Kick Ass, Howard the Duck.
Yeah,
There's a
I,
lot of
and
movies out there.
and I'm like, and like my thing is like when we talk about it, I want to rewatch them,
Yeah,
again,
yeah, that's the
and
point.
like so I can't wait to watch Howard the Duck again. You know,
You
I
know, I want to ask. I'm going to ask you right now, Widow. Do you want to do? Do you want to just? Do you want to do Howard the Duck next week?
Yeah, we could do it. Yeah,
I
I need to
would
watch
love
it.
to do
Yeah,
that movie next week. That would be fun. That
yeah,
it
I
would be
need
a
to.
great excuse to revisit that. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
pull out my Howard the Duck Blu-ray Steelbook and now sit there
Oh my,
and watch
yes.
it again.
Like
Oh,
it
that
just,
would be
I
fantastic.
really, yeah. And this is to see if I still have the same attachment and love for it that I once did, because it's been a while since I've seen it.
Oh, it has been a while for me too. It's been about, I would say it's been about a year, maybe. I definitely do want to revisit it. So I think that should be the one we do next week. That'd be great.
Yay, Howard
the Duck. Yes. There it is. So now you know, guys, that's the episode. We will be doing this. We're gonna do this on Friday night, right?
Yes, Friday.
Okay. We only did it tonight because of yesterday.
Yeah, I had
we'll do a
thing yesterday,
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Cool. So for those that are in the chat, I hope that you guys are excited for this new show that we're doing, this new stream. We're gonna as always, we want to keep it respectful. We want to keep it fun. Everybody is welcome in the chat as long as you're respectful and you're not attacking others. And we are definitely going to just make this a regular thing and have a lot of fun while doing it. Howard the Duck is definitely going to be the episode that we do.
Yes.
Please join us for next week's episode. God, this was fun. I love this so much.
It was. I'm excited to do this, and excited, to see all the people in the chat and get to know some of you guys.
So definitely, guys, if you haven't, please like and subscribe. Share this live stream if you can, and definitely subscribe to Ashley the Widow as well. We want to get Ashley up to 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I've got to start doing content again. Yes, I'll be
as possible. This is great stuff. I'm telling you, I couldn't be more excited. This is the thing I was looking forward to most. The type of stream I was looking forward to most this year, because there's just so much we can talk about. It's endless. There's endless amounts of movies. We'll never run out of topics.
Yes, never. And Gippy, I'm so glad to see Gippy here. That's my girl.
I am too. Oh my God, that is great.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great night. Thank you for coming, everyone. We will be back next Friday, so please make sure that you are here. And especially if you like Howard the Duck, I will be promoting and we'll advertise, and you guys will see it as it comes closer. So thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. And
bye. I'm waving, but you can't see.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe we'll be on camera next time.
Yeah, next time I will be. Okay. I promise.
You will. Good night, everybody.
Face reveal.